Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. C- in action, image processing, forecasting, and natural language processing. We'll just wait 2 more minutes for additional attendees to join us before we get started. All right, let's get started. My name is Adam, and I am the community manager of Plotly. I'm also accompanied by my colleagues from the Plotly marketing team. Today, we'll be showing you a collection of inspiring Dash apps, most of which were built by the community for the community. These apps were submitted to the Plotly Explore App Challenge that ran from March to May. The app authors will be showing you just how much is possible with Dash. A little bit about the speakers. To celebrate the new Explore Apps webpage, as well as the winning Dash apps of the challenge, we've invited 4 community members to present their apps today. First, Gab Albini, a lead data architect working at Affinity in Italy. Then we'll have Nadia Blostein, a research associate at QMR Lab in Canada. Then we'll have Thomas Wood, a data scientist at Fast Data Science in England, and Mateo Trachtel, the head of sustainability at Thermoplan AG in Switzerland. Thank you all for joining us. Just a couple of things before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them in the side panel. We'll do our best to respond to them throughout the webinar. If we don't have time to get to all of the questions, we will respond to them via email afterwards. So definitely keep the questions coming. So let me kick off the session today by providing a brief intro into Plotly. For those who are not familiar, Plotly was founded in 2013. Since then, our graphing libraries have been downloaded over 15 million times. Plotly is the creator of 3 globally known products. First, as you can see in the very center of the page, the open source graphing libraries to which we owe our namesake, called Plotly.js and Plotly.py. Then we have the open source data app framework called Dash, which allows you to build Python data apps that natively incorporate Plotly graphs. Then deployment at the very top, you'll see we have Dash Enterprise, which offers automation, design, professional services, and support. All right, so I know you're all eager to hear from our authors and see the apps. The first app we'll see today incorporates predictive analytics and aviation data, and it was built by community member Gab. Gab, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Can you please share with the audience members how you got started with Dash and what inspired you to actually start learning Dash?
Sure. Basically, I started learning Dash a few years ago as I wanted to be able to create interactive web application with dashboards and charts, and using the knowledge I had about Python, HTML, CSS. So I really started learning from some online tutorial and YouTube videos. And then I started playing with some basic application, and slowly I introduced more advanced components, and now I'm using Dash quite often also on the job.
So thank you for answering the first question. As for the second question, before you actually present this app to the audience, I know that this app touches on sarima theory. Can you tell me more about the sarima theory? What is it exactly?
Yeah, so sarima models are a family of models which are used to work with time series dataset, which is basically data organized by time. And sarima stands for seasonal arima, which is an acronym for the different components that we see on the screen. So basically we have an autoregressive component, an integrated component, and a moving average component. And then these 3 components can also be replicated on the seasonality. So each component is a way to, let's say, relate previous data points from the past to the future, and we can use to extract signal from the past and basically predict the future. So the autoregressive components, for instance, is using P data points from the past, linearly combining them to represent the future. Or the moving average component is similar, but it just takes the moving average from Q data points in the past. And then we have the integrated component, which is a little bit different, and we will see it in the app, how that works. And also to model seasonality, we basically replicate these three components on the seasonal lag. So if we have a repeating pattern every year, we will have a yearly seasonality, and we can reproduce the three components over the years. What I liked about these models is that we can basically switch off some components if we don't see them in our data set. So we can remain in the same framework of model, but and use them for a lot of diverse data.
Cool. So thank you, Gav. So this explanation will definitely help the audience as you showcase the app, now that they better understand the theory. I'll let my colleague from the marketing team share screen capabilities so you can walk us through your beautiful app.
Okay. Just a second. Okay, so it took a bit, but I'm back and I can control the screen. So yeah, let me share my screen. I hope you can see it in a second.
Yep, we see your screen.
Okay, so yeah, this is basically the landing page of the app. And basically this app is intended to support people analyzing data in fitting their sarima models to their data set. To just show an example, we have a built-in data set, which is air passenger, and it's quite famous online to showcase time series data sets. And here we see the 4 steps that we will perform today, describe. Basically, the first step is really to show the data as it is and see if sarima could be a good choice for this data set. So we can see a classic time series data set. We have 1 observation per month, and we also notice we have seasonality over basically every year, because in every November is a low of the year, and then in July or August are the peak of every year. So we can try to apply sarima to it. And in the second step, we basically are trying to find these parameters and these different components that I was showing before. And we can split this page actually into 2 parts. So on the right part, we see these 2 charts, which are correlogram. They are quite common in literature because they represent a way to correlate the time series dataset with a lag version of itself. So for instance, if we go at lag 1, this means that every data point is correlated to its previous data point with this amount, and so on for the others. So not going into much theoretical details, but we basically need 2 charts and to isolate some partial autocorrelation here, because these bottom charts will help us modeling the AR component of sarima, and this the moving average component. But before actually using them, we need to make our data stationary, like it says here. And stationarity is a property of the data set, which means having constant mean and constant variance over time. Here we see that the data is not stationary. We can see it from this left side, where basically both the mean and the variance increase over time. So we need to apply some transformations, and usually these are the ones that work to make the data stationary. We can apply a logarithm to solve for the variance non-stationarity. And then this differentiation means literally applying the integrated component that I was describing. So here we apply generally a 1 degree and 1 lag differentiation. And since we have a seasonality of 12 months, we also apply a differentiation with a lag of 12. So we use two integrated components, and now the data is stationary. So we can go back to these two charts, and in the bottom charts we see a bit of a random signal, some negative correlation, then positive. When these patterns appear, normally the AR component is not strong, and we can assume it to be 0 for this example. And in the moving average, the chart is more interpretable. We have a signal that fades out over time, and we have strong correlation at 12, 3, and 1. So we can play with these parameters in this next step, where basically we are identifying a set of different models that we can all test again against the data. So we train a bunch of models on part of our data. We reserve some part of the data to test each model. And this process is called performing a grid search. So we come up with several model combination. Now I'm putting all the parameters that we are certain about. So we apply differentiation of 1 degree. So we can set it to 1 here. Then we apply the differentiation on the seasonality lag. The AR component, which is governed by these P parameters, was 0, so we can leave it as 0. Then we were uncertain between 1 and 3, and then maybe we can test 1 also in the seasonality for the moving average component. So once all these combinations are created, we have 6 models that we can compare on the same data, and we will pick the top performing one to be the best model we could identify so far. So in the final step, we will actually plot the original data in bright green, the predictions in dark green, and we can see how the model follows the real data. And also we can go into the future. Let's say we want to predict a new year. We could see if we obtain a realistic pattern, and we can then use this as the next year predictions. And here at the bottom, they are just these two charts are just controlling if we have some strange signal in the residuals. So yeah, in a few basically minutes, we were able to come up with a pretty good model. And the idea is that one user could go back, replace their data into the file application, and do the same steps again to create their model.
Sweet. Thank you, Gab. I remember when I first saw this app, I was so excited about it when you submitted it to the app challenge, because it looks clean, it looks neat. The first page, it explains things very well, and then it's very well organized and user-friendly, right? You can go to the second, and if you go in the order, you can actually understand and carry out this sarima theory to your benefit. So thank you so much for presenting it.
Sure, you're welcome.
One question before we move on to the next app. So I know this is obviously only one Dash app, but I understand that you are using Dash at your workplace as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, so I work at Affinity, where we basically offer a machine learning solution for call centers. So through our platforms, calls that arrive at the call centers are routed to agents in order to optimize, for instance, sales performed over the calls, or retention of clients, churn rates, customer satisfaction. So several KPIs that we can choose. And to do so, we receive and we work with a lot of data coming from our clients. So we use Dash basically as a monitoring tool, both in terms of all the processes we do and the transformations we do on the data, and also to monitor some KPIs that we want to track, especially on the call centers, in order to make sure that nothing goes wrong, or that we can build our features with control. So we have a lot of dash charts where we monitor either the KPIs that we receive or the execution times of our transformation steps that we do. So everything is under control, basically.
Cool. Well, thank you, Gav, again for making this app, submitting it, and presenting it to our audience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So let me just share my screen here so we can move on to our next app. Our next app that we are going to look in today comes from the field of science and engineering, and it covers the fascinating topic of brain imaging. We have Nadia to present this app for us. Hi, Nadia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role and what you will be showing us today?
Yeah, so I currently hold the position of Research Associate at QMR Lab at Polytechnic Montreal, and I'm delivering a talk on behalf of my colleague, Dr. Aga Karakuzu. And so we're both members of a lab led by Dr. Nikola Stikov that specializes in magnetic resonance imaging research. So the dashboard being presented today was built by Aga Karakuzu to accompany a preprint related to MRI research that was published on the Neuro Libre reproducible preprint server.
Nice. And so what motivated your lab to build the app that you're going to present?
So beyond our dedicated work to MRI research, the QMR lab is actively involved in pioneering the development of Neuro Libre, which is aiming at achieving unprecedented reproducibility in scientific research. And so what's special about the dashboard being presented today is that it is hosted by Neuro Libre, and it supercharges a scientific article that will be submitted for peer review. So this may be the first time in academic publishing where a paper embeds its own dashboard.
Sweet. And can you tell us a little bit more about the specific app that you're going to present?
Yeah, so I'm going to present a dashboard that was built to accompany a scientific article about a reproducibility study conducted in the field of magnetic resonance imaging. And just for you to follow along better, I'll provide a bit of context since this dashboard accompanies a paper that's super field specific. So magnetic resonance imaging, also known as MRI, is a non-invasive medical imaging technique that allows you to generate really detailed three-dimensional images in vivo, in live animals or humans, in structures such as the brain, the spine, the musculoskeletal system. And so these images are stored as a tensor where each 3D pixel, also known as a voxel, stores a numerical value. And so the basic idea of MRI, like really simplifying it, is that the machine has a large magnet that aligns the water molecules in, for instance, your brain or some other organ in one direction. A second magnet transiently disrupts this alignment, but because the first magnet is still on, the water molecules then realign with it. And the time it takes for those water molecules to realign with the original magnet, it varies depending on where you are, depending on the underlying tissue microstructure. And so the time that this takes is called a T1 value, and it varies. So it varies anatomically, and so it's measured in milliseconds. So basically, the data that's going to be presented today, each data point has a collection of voxels, so 3D pixels, and each voxel contains a number corresponding to a T1 value, which is measured in seconds. So one issue, however, with T1 values is that they vary a lot across sites, so the institution where the MR images were collected, as well as across MR hardware. So the main vendors are Siemens, so hardware vendors such as Siemens, Philips, and GE. And so the point of the study being presented today was to assess the reproducibility of these values across sites and vendors using the same protocol. So research groups that participated submitted data collected either in an in vivo brain of a human or in a phantom. And it's important for you guys to understand what a phantom is, because it's an important part of the dashboard. And so in the context of imaging, phantoms are devices that contain small spheres in each sphere you have a liquid for which you actually know the T1 value. And so these phantoms serve as a reference that provides ground truth information. So that's sort of the.
Thank you, Nadia. Now, I'm gonna let my colleague from the marketing team share the screen with you right now. In the meantime, while this is happening, I just want to reiterate T1 values, because a big part of the app is about T1. T1 values, if I understand correctly, is a measurement of time that it takes the water molecules to align with one of the magnets, right? When you're doing the testing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
okay, perfect. All right. So
my screen.
The floor is yours. Yep, we can see the app.
Great, lovely. So this is the homepage of the app that AGA built. So on this homepage, first of all, you have this nice, one thing that's fun is this icon over here is dynamic. It moves. So, you know, Plotly Dash enables dynamic icons if you want to embed them. And then this sign key diagram is showing basically each group that participated is giving you information about the data they submitted. So whether they collected it in a phantom or in a human brain, and then what site or institution that group was part of, as well as the vendor of the hardware on which the MRI hardware on which the data was acquired. And so this is really important information. And the other thing that's elegant is you can hover over to basically see, you know, the number of groups that were part of a specific institute that submitted data for either brain or phantom and across vendors. And another fun, you know, really elegant thing, aspect of this app is that you can change the theme of it if you so choose. So one important thing in data science is really understanding the information you're working with. This is something that Dash and Plotly really enable people to do, because Excel spreadsheets and, you know, matrices are not so intuitive to the human eye. And it's important to understand the data that you have before kind of proceeding with an analysis. So going into the phantom data that was submitted to the challenge, you can change pages, but then even within the pages, you can have different tabs, which is neat because it allows you to see one simple, clear figure at a time, as opposed to having a lot of really densely packed information that's kind of difficult to read through. So over here, AGA basically hard-coded. So this is the phantom. Each phantom has a sphere. And so people were scanning the phantom and submitting this information. And these are the mean values across all submissions for each sphere in the phantom. So the mean T1 values in milliseconds. And AGA was able to hard code these little spheres to display values according to the selected parameters. So here we have mean values according to what people submitted across all vendors. And so this is fun because many of you probably know that Plotly supports choropleth maps. And this is kind of like a custom version of that, if you will. So you can kind of make it your own. So if you select a specific vendor, the T1 values will change. You can look at different parameters here. There's another tab that shows you information by sphere. So if you select a sphere such as sphere 1, each box plot represents the T1 values submitted by a specific research group. Here you can select what vendors you want to look at. So if you want to only look at the submissions by people who collected this data on a Siemens scanner, you can do that. So here you have only your Siemens information. And if you want, you can also just look at this information by site. So for instance, if you pick the McGill University Health Center, they had 3 submissions from that institution. Each box plot here represents a specific sphere. So the T1 values, the distribution of T1 values submitted across the groups at McGill. And here you have the mean values being displayed again. So the interesting aspect of this study was that, you know, people submitted phantom data, but they also submitted brain data. And so here, another really elegant way to look at things is that you can kind of select a brain region. So people were asked to get T1 values in a gray matter region. And so over here, you see the mean T1 value in this specific gray matter structure in green over here. And you know how many people submitted this information. You could toggle to only look at the data submitted by people who collected it on a Siemens scanner, for instance, and you can see that the T1 value is going to change. But also you can display this by site. So say I pick a white matter. So here, this is the white matter. And so over here, then the box plot is going to show the distribution of the T1 values of each specific research group. Within this specific structure, you can also only select the ones submitted by people who, for instance, collected their data on Siemens. And one really elegant Plotly feature here is that you can play with the y-axis, so you can fix and release it, because as a lot of you are probably familiar, people often play with the scaling of the y-axes of the figures they display in order to maybe show a difference, to make something they're showing you look more significant than it actually is. And then finally, you can finally, look at the statistical analyses here. So for instance, this is just showing some groups collected 2 types of data, and it's just showing the correlation between the 2. Or you can also, so what was fun in this paper is they used a technique called the hierarchical shift function analysis. And this basically allows you to compare 2 groups according to the distributions of their data points, as opposed to just having one estimator, such as the mean. So yeah, and what's fun here is that this is accompanied by a preprint, so you can kind of look at these figures, interact with them, better understand the data, but also in parallel read and check the paper to get more information about this work. So
thanks, Nadia. Nadia, you just mentioned the preprint survey. You mentioned also that a couple of days ago when you and I had a brief discussion. Can you tell our audience what is exactly this preprint survey and what motivated you to the need to build this reproducible preprint server?
Yeah, so basically, so the reason why this is a reproducible preprint server is that, through the use of Plotly and Dash, Neuro Libre enables the generation of documents that allow users to observe the data in the form of interactive figures, change figure parameters, view the code that generated the figures, and modify that code themselves, as opposed to just having a static preprint, which it also allows you to access as well. So you can print this preprint if you want. And so we're really glad that Dash made this happen. Yeah, so thank you guys for what you're doing.
Cool. Thank you, Nadia. And last question before we move on to the next app. How were you specifically involved in the creation of this app?
So I began learning Dash just 3 months ago, coming from a neuroscience background, where I primarily use PyPlot and Seaborn for data visualization. And in life sciences in general, it seems like people are a bit less familiar with Plotly Dash. And so Aga entrusted me with this talk because I utilized his dashboard as a template to create my own app. And having a template as well as my prior knowledge of Python made it really, really easy to follow along. And so in retrospect, I regret not discovering Plotly Dash earlier. It would have, it's very versatile, interactive. It would have helped me understand my master's thesis data better, and would have helped me make better visualizations. So
better late than never. We're really glad you discovered Dash. We were really glad you learned it so fast, and you came here to show our community or the beautiful app that you all created. Thank you so much, Nadia. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now just to make sure, can you see my screen? Moving on to the next app. So our next app comes from the world of NLP and pharma. Thomas is here to show us the app that he built. Thomas, how are you?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Cool. I'm good, thank you. All right, so can you share, before you share the app, can you share with us how you got started with Dash and why you started learning it?
Yeah, so what happens is I worked as a consultant for a number of different companies. So I'm a freelancer, and I do data analysis. So companies send me their data sets, and it's often things like surveys or transcripts of interviews, or things like, it could be clinical documents. And quite often the data that I get is in very unstructured text form, and they need a lot of visualizations. And with one client company in particular a few years ago, I would send them graphs that I had generated, and they'd say, please change the axis, please, segment it this way or that way, or break it down in a different way. And I was constantly having this back and forth and doing different breakdowns. So in the end, I started to look for a dashboard package, and I tried out a few different alternatives, and I chose Dash in the end, partly because, well, mainly because it's very easy to use, very easy to get started with, and I was already working with Python, every day, so I didn't have to go off and learn something like React or JavaScript or some kind of entirely new framework. I could just, get started straight away. So it was really nice. I used Dash App Gallery, just took, one of the examples off there and just, adapted it for my needs, and it worked fine. So that was great.
Awesome. Now, I know that you build a lot of Dash apps, but specifically this one today, what motivated you to build the one that you're going to present today?
So the one I'm going to present today, this one is funded and supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So I've done a number of different apps for different clients. This is the particular one that I'm showing today. And what happens is they fund clinical trials in LMICs, low and middle income countries, and they get a lot of submissions by investigators who are planning to run a clinical trial at a particular center somewhere around the world. And they have a problem of triaging these submissions. So a clinical trial, it's a bit like you apply for a job, you would send your CV or your resume, which is like a couple of pages. A clinical trial is specified as a huge PDF document. So there's a PDF that they write called a protocol, and that describes how they're going to run the trial, how many people they need to recruit, where it's going to take place, how many centers, what drug or intervention they're testing, how they're going to measure how well it works, and how they're going to do their data analysis and what statistical tests they're going to use. So it's a huge amount of information in one PDF document, and quite often it's about 200 pages long, so it's huge. And you would need, if you wanted to get all the important key values out of it, it would need some very highly skilled people, but not even one person, kind of someone who's in medicine, someone else who's a statistician, all these people have to read through. And the Gates Foundation, like anyone else, or even internally in a pharmaceutical company, they have to work out, is this trial worth continuing with? Because if you spend money on a trial and it runs and one part of it was poorly designed, like the statistical analysis, then it's a waste of money. So I started to build some machine learning models for them that were using natural language processing, and they were looking for risk factors. So things like, have they not paid proper attention to the statistical analysis and things like that. And so I've made these NLP, these machine learning models, and it was clear that we needed a way for the users of this tool to run it themselves, and a user-friendly, non-technical way. So we ended up using Dash for the project, and that allowed me to concentrate all my energy on machine learning and natural language processing, which is my day job, and not spend a load of time on the front end.
Cool. Well, I'm super excited for you to show us the app that was funded and approved by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We're just sharing the screen with you right now, so you can have access. All right.
Okay, great. Can you see the app at the moment?
No, we see your desktop and something else.
Great.
Okay, now we see it.
Great, fantastic. Okay, all done. Okay, so here is the tool itself. So yeah. Okay, so you can visit the website at clinicaltrialrisk.org to use this tool. And how it works is you can upload PDF documents into the tool. So there are a few PDFs that are already in there, and I'm going to show you one of them. So I'm just randomly picking one from the list. If I click to view the PDF, then so this is an example of a protocol. So this one is actually quite short, so perhaps I should use a longer one. But yeah, this one is 29 pages, and it's some technical language saying, Maraviroc, let's say the name of the intervention, and it's got the name of the sponsor, the sites, and all these things. And if you go through, you find here sample size and the type of, the pathology. All this information is in there, and it's, quite a long document here, scrolling down to the end. So it's scientific or very technical language. And then if I go back to the to the actual tool. So this tool has been uploaded this protocol has been uploaded into the tool, and it's been triaged as having a high risk of uninformativeness, so a high risk of ending without delivering informative information. So informative information would be information that results in a policy change, or so a clinical trial that ends with information that is useful to the funders. So
Right.
we've got it marked as high risk of uninformativeness, and we've got word cloud appeared showing here. So this was generated with matplotlib as a PNG and then just sent out. So that's quite nice how all these different libraries can be integrated really easily with Plotly. Then if I scroll down, we've got the condition, the phase, we've got all these bits of structured data that have been extracted from that unstructured text: statistical analysis plan, effect estimate, number of subjects participating. So this one we saw is correct, it's 30. And if I want to see why any of these decisions were made, I can click on it, click on the explain button, for example, and it will say, so if I click on statistical analysis plan, it's showing me where is the statistical content in the document. So it's saying, around page 25, and then these are key terms that are correlated with a statistical analysis plan. So if I disagree with any of these decisions, let's say I say, in fact, it does have an effect estimate, I can click that, and I can, let's say if I want to change the phase of the trial or something, it updates in real time, and you get this, so you can correct the values that the AI extracts, and then it shows you as well how the calculation has been made. So all these values that were extracted and how they're weighted to make a score between 0 and 100. And then eventually, if you want, you can just download it to Excel and then share with colleagues and so on. And so it's very user-friendly, very understandable. Somebody who knows nothing about AI can come in and use this tool, and yeah, it's worked quite well. It's been well received.
Thank you, Thomas. I really like how that functionality in there where somebody can look at the statistics and then find one of the outputs, specifically what page of the PDF it's located. Because when you have to read like 100 pages, it's really hard to find the exact location of what you're interested in. So that's a really cool feature.
Yeah.
Everything about this app is really cool.
Great, thank you.
One question, Thomas, before moving on to the next app. I know that this app was built as part of the Melinda Bill Gates Foundation. What role does this app have in pharma, specifically in biotech in general? Is it actively used in clinical trials?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So the reason why the Gates Foundation funded it was to be able to triage trials that are submitted to them for funding into high and low risk. And we've actually made this open source, so researchers can evaluate their own protocols before they submit them to the Gates Foundation for funding. So they don't waste time making a submission that would be rejected. We've also published an article in a journal called Gates Open Research, and that explains how the app was built. And yeah, so people around the world can use this and check their trials, just do a sanity check before they submit it. And another pharma company, if they want to use it, they could use it.
Magnificent. It sounds like I remember you also talking to me about this a couple of days ago. It's like, it sounds like it's so helpful, not only for the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, but also for people around the world, saving them tremendous amount of time and potentially money. So thank you for creating the app, and thank you for sharing this with us today.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on to our last but not least, our app that we have today will be presented by Mateo. This app is from the manufacturing and R&D field and the lovely world of coffee. Mateo, how are you?
Good afternoon. Hello. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Can you share with our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm head of sustainability at Thermoplan. That's where I'm leading the strategy and also the different departments regarding sustainability. And we are also building a life cycle assessment, as you will see later on in our product environmental report. We are a coffee machine manufacturer. I assume not all of you have heard about Thermoplan, but I'm sure if you're a coffee drinker, you had already once a cup of coffee out of a Thermoplan machine. So we are building coffee machines and developing them also in Wackes, Switzerland for quite large customers. So we have Starbucks, Nespresso, and Costa Coffee, where we can develop custom machines to them. So if you go to the next Starbucks store, you will have a cup of coffee out of a machine built in Wackes.
I actually went to Starbucks this morning and I was trying to get close enough so I could see if it's your machine, but the machine was behind the employees, so I couldn't really see it. But I trust you that it's probably your machine.
Exactly, yeah.
Mateo, when did you start learning and working with Dash?
So I was using Plotly first in the positions that I had before when I was working in R&D. So we did quite a lot of visualization there on tests we did. And now we were looking for a way, also now in the sustainability field, how we can showcase these plots in a nice way. And that's where we found Plotly Dash as an amazing tool that we can use it and visualize reports and make them also publicly available.
Wonderful. So in the interest of time, we're going to share a screen with you right now so you can walk us through the main features of the app.
Perfect. Now I assume you are seeing my screen.
Yes, we can see the app.
So yes, this app, it's live available. You can access it by report.thermoplan.ch. As you can see, it really looks like a report that was also intentionally made, and that's really was possible only through the Dash library that we are using. So you can see here the different machines that we are building under our own brand, the Black and White series. We have for each machine a different tab where we showcase really the detailed carbon footprint. Now, what exactly is the carbon footprint of a machine and what does it include? So here on this page, we try to explain what is really going behind this carbon footprint. So we talk about the parts, we talk about the manufacturing, the packaging, distribution, then the use phase, which is really important in a professional coffee machine, and then the recycling. We have here some more explanation, the standards we are using, and the calculation method. It's all transparently explained. And also one of the reasons to use this report is to showcase in a really transparent way the carbon emission of a coffee machine. We have here different labels like the energy standard, products highlight, this machine now features. If you go further down, we have a drop down. So where our customers and also our sales representative can put in the really customized data to calculate carbon footprint for their customers. I will come up to this feature later on. But now if you look once at the total carbon footprint of a coffee machine, we see here in a table or nicely presented in the bar chart what does really matter for the carbon emissions. It's the use phase. So it's the use phase in dairy milk, coffee, electrical energy, parts, and so on. So that's why or what we try to showcase here in a really transparent way. If you go further down, then we have here parts. We showcase the emissions of our machine on parts level. So yeah, we calculate for each part the emissions and then group it and visualize it in a sunburst plot, as you see here. Further down, we talk also about our suppliers. We have a lot of really local suppliers around Switzerland. So here we showcase by weight our tier 1 suppliers, and we definitely see it's around more than 60% of all parts are coming from Switzerland. Now, if we go further down in this report, we talk about the manufacturing at Thermoplan. For example, we are using 100% renewable energy. We talk about the packaging. We talk about the distribution, so where our machines are all available. So as you can see here, all around the world, our machines are allowed to operate. So almost everybody can get a Thermoplan machine. Then further down, we talk about the use phase. And as already mentioned, the use phase is the most important part of a carbon footprint of a coffee machine. Here on the right side, you see the average usage of the coffee machine, of this particular coffee machine. We extract a lot of cloud data and build average models that we can represent this machine in a report like that. Then further, we also highlight what's easily possible to change when you would like to reduce the carbon footprint of your single coffee or at the end of the whole use phase of the coffee machine. So when you're switching from dairy milk to milk alternatives like almond or oat. So that's something we also, we make really easy possible with our machines, which is capable to produce really nice cappuccinos with almost every milk alternative. Now going back to the adjustment of the carbon footprint of the calculator. So we say here, now this machine is also used 7 days per week. We have around 200 cups per day. Now that we see also change here on the right side on this bar chart, we will adjust something. So we say it's only 50 milliliter of milk per cup, but then also only 20% of the total beverages are milk-based. We have now a little bit more coffee beans per espresso. It's 15 grams. We say we use shipping to the US around 10,000 kilometer, maybe 5,000 with the truck, and no plane. And now if we click calculate, we have a physical model behind that's calculating the footprint. And as you see, it's definitely a huge change. We see that now it's not dairy, the main driver anymore, it's coffee. And that's a tool which is really helpful also for our sales team, that they can use this this report and show it when they go to customers, inform them. And it's really the key to be transparent about emissions, that at the end it's a global problem we are facing. We tackle it together. So that's a product environmental report, which you can access by report.thermoplan.ch.
Thank you, Mateo. Now, I know that this app is currently used at your company you mentioned. Can you tell me about the impact of this app?
Yes, it's for us, it's really great to have an app like that, because internally we are using ClickSense, and we were not able to represent or to create a report like that. And the impact or also the feedback from our customers is great. They are using it, and we definitely also see that we can use with our key customers, which machine you don't see publicly available in a closed report. It's not open. So, and then we are using and thinking to use the enterprise version of Dash, where we have authentication and really can give this authentication to specific people.
That's good to hear. And before moving on, as we close out, what suggestions do you have for people that are just starting out with Dash?
Yeah, I think Dash is such a great tool to learn, or when you can learn Python really easily. And I think there are so many examples available where you can get a really quick start. And with that, I think it's a matter of some days that you can create a first prototype in an app, and then you can move on.
Thank you, Mateo. I remember when you first submitted this app in the challenge, I really got excited about going into and calculating my carbon footprint, because I drink about one cup of coffee a day, and I always wondered, like, what does that mean? How much of a carbon footprint does it have? And I was happy to be able to use your app to actually calculate that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank, in addition to Mateo, I'd like to thank all of our app authors for the presentation and for showing us everything that one can do with Dash, everything that Dash is capable of. Nadia, Tomas, Gab, and Mateo, thank you so much for joining us. So what we've seen today is only part of what Dash can do. In fact, we're constantly developing and adding new product features to Dash. Here are some of the things that you can expect. In the open source world, in the next Dash release, Dash will automatically detect when you're working in a Jupyter notebook and display the app in the output cell. You will no longer need to use Jupyter Dash because everything will be inside one Dash package. Also, when using layout shapes, some of you I know use layout shapes in our Plotly graphs. When using that to add features to your graph, you'll soon be able to include these shapes in the legend, meaning that you can hide and show the shape with just one click. And many of Plotly's high performance or 3D graphs are drawn with WebGL, but browsers typically limit that to about 4 to 5 WebGL graphs on a page. We're going to work on a way to overcome this limit so you can add more WebGL graphs on any page on your web browser. Regarding the Dash Enterprise product, as we speak, our engineers are in the process of releasing version 5.1. This update includes single server availability, which builds on the already existing multi-server version. Additionally, we've added some security updates as well as memory limit adjustments. And all of these total to over like 100 incremental improvements. So whether you're using our open source or enterprise products, we are constantly innovating and adding more features for our users. During today's presentation, you got a sense of how Plotly and Dash is used in separate business industries and analytics categories like image processing, forecasting, NLP, pharma, aviation. We feel very lucky to have a large community of users across virtually every industry. And on the right, you'll see just a few of these impressive logos from all of these industries. All right, back to the community. As part of our open source development, the community meets once a month to discuss ongoing projects and the latest Dash developments. If you want to join us, simply email me at adam@plotly.com. That is adam@plotly.com. Another way to stay up to date with the latest Plotly and Dash developments is to sign up to our free Dash Club newsletter. My colleague is going to share the Dash Club newsletter in the panel here, so you have it. By signing up to the Dash Club newsletter, you'll also learn about our exciting Dash ChatGPT app challenge and the rewards which come with it. If you'd like to receive the newsletter, just click the link shared in the message section of the side panel. All right, so we have, before I close us out and say goodbye, we have one question from the audience, and this is open to everybody. Gab, Nadia, Mateo, Tomas, I hope you're still there. I don't see you on camera. But the question is, what, if you know this, what Dash version did you use in the apps that you made?
I used 2.9.3.
2.9.3, Gab?
That's the one I used, yeah.
Cool. Nadia, Tomas, Mateo, do you remember what Dash version? Well, most of these apps are actually open source, so anybody can actually go in there and see in the requirements.txt. Usually is where you can find Dash versions and all the libraries used.
Yeah, I'm checking that in my one now because 2.4.1.
2.4. Okay, so that's an earlier version. So probably Gab has been using the latest version, because 2.9.3 is just the last one. We just released 2.9 10. So Gab, congratulations, you're the closest. With the advantage of using anything above 2.9 is that you have access to duplicate output components in several callbacks. You can just do a duplicate allow true, and you have access to patch. You can see that all about that in our previous webinar. Again, if you want some access, all you have to do is email us. All right, so it looks like we're just about out of time, so we're going to wrap up. Sorry we didn't get a chance to answer more of the audience questions, but we did receive a lot, so we're going to make sure to send out an email and answer them. Feel free to reach out to us at info@plotly.com. Again, that's info@plotly.com, and we'll make sure to reply to any other questions you have for us. Let me send this right here. Thank you again for our speakers, Gab, Mateo, Thomas, Nadia, and to all our attendees for joining us. Make sure to look out for the recording after the webinar, along with some resources.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.